All right, good evening. It is 7:03 p.m., and I'd like to welcome you to the District of Sechelt regular meeting of Council. I'd like to acknowledge that we are working, living, and playing on the unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We have an agenda in front of us. I'd like to make a couple of amendments to the agenda. So first, on the first page, you'll notice it says receipt of staff reports. As we've been doing in the last while, we are receiving all the reports up front. So staff are putting this in so that it's anybody looking at the agenda will see a list of the reports that we've accepted at the meeting. 8.2A in that list says report from David Douglas, Director of Finance. It actually is report from Joanne Frank, Corporate Officer. And then we'd like to move number 8.2 to after 10.3. There is 10.3 actually has some information that will be included in the fees and charges amendment bylaw. So 10.3 will be followed by 8.2. I think those are all the changes. Any questions? All right, I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So are there any conflicts of interest or conflicts in this agenda? Don't see any. We will move on to receipt of the staff reports. I'd look for a motion to receive all the reports. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. So we're going to move on to our proclamations. We have 3 of them tonight. So number 4.1, this is a proclamation for Adoption Awareness Month, November 2021. Whereas this month is about raising awareness for adoption in British Columbia and celebrating the families who have welcomed children and youth as permanent members of their family, and whereas every child deserves the love and support of a nurturing family, and November is about celebrating the adoptive families that have made a difference in the lives of children by providing care, guidance, and a sense of belonging. And whereas November is also about recognizing that there are children who are still waiting for permanent homes, and there continues to be a need for more adoptive families in British Columbia to offer their support to help children grow and develop into their full potential. And whereas the Adoptive Families Association of British Columbia provides information and support services for families who wish to adopt now or in the future, now therefore I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that the month of November 2021 shall be known as Adoption Awareness Month in the District of Sechelt. Item 4.2, Proclamation, Métis Cultural Awareness Week, November 14th through 20th, 2021. Whereas the Métis people and their descendants have significantly contributed to the exploration, growth, and development of Canada, and whereas the Métis people are recognized under Section 35 of the Constitution Act 1982 as one of Canada's Aboriginal peoples, and whereas Métis Cultural Awareness Week coincides with Louis Riel Day, recognized on November 16th, and whereas Louis Riel was a humanitarian and an advocate for the Métis people and one of the Métis people's foremost historic leaders who strove for justice and the rights of the Métis people as Manitoba joined Confederation. And whereas the province of British Columbia honors Métis history and culture, Louis Riel's place in Canadian history, and the province's valued relationship with the Métis people of the province of British Columbia, now therefore I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that the week of November 14th through 20th, 2021, shall be known as Métis Cultural Awareness Week in the District of Sechelt. Now we have someone in the gallery who would like to be admitted for this next delegation. Have you brought her in? Thank you. So item 4.3, this is a proclamation, Restorative Justice Week, November 21st through 28th, 2021. Whereas in the face of crime or conflict, restorative justice offers a philosophy and approach that views these matters principally as harm done to people and relationships. And whereas restorative justice is a non-adversarial, non-retributive approach to justice that emphasizes healing in victims, accountability of offenders, and the involvement of citizens in creating healthier, safer communities. And whereas this year's theme for Restorative Justice Week is Innovative Expressions of Restorative Justice, it is an opportunity to learn about restorative justice, educate and celebrate along with other communities across the country during the week. Now, therefore, I, Darnelda Seegers, on behalf of the District of Sechelt Council, do hereby proclaim that November 21st through 28th, 2021 shall be known as Restorative Justice Week in the District of Sechelt. And we have Ms. Donna Schmerler here with us, and you'd like to speak to this. Welcome.
Yes, hi. So thank you so much for this proclamation, Mayor Seegers and Council. So my name is Donna Schmerler, and I'm the current board president for the Restorative Justice Program of the Sunshine Coast. And with me this evening is our vice president, Sue Spurgeon. And we are joining you virtually from the unceded homelands of the Sechelt and Squamish peoples. First off, I'd like to thank the District of Sechelt for your long-standing and ongoing support of our organization. The theme of this year's National Restorative Justice Week is Innovative Expressions of Restorative Justice. The last 19 months have been quite a time for us all, a time of stress, anxiety, and resilience and adaptability. And these are our innovations. The Restorative Justice Program is a confidential in-person process, often a series of emotionally intense conversations, supporting people through a process of understanding the impacts of harm done and moving towards agreements and actions taken to heal the harm and repair damaged relationships. At the Restorative Justice Program, we had to find ways to do our work while adapting to COVID restrictions. So we moved all of our board and committee meetings, as well as all of our volunteer trainings, online. This was a very steep learning curve for all of us. But even more challenging, we moved our actual circle facilitations online as well. And occasionally, when allowed, they happened in outdoor meetings with social distancing. Nobody had been doing this pre-COVID. This was a big adaptation. And we have been getting good outcomes so far. For me, it's not quite the same as the face-to-face, in-person, the energy is a little bit different, but you know, healing is happening. And that's been pretty amazing to see. So we want you to know that we're ready, willing, and able to continue taking referrals from the RCMP, schools, and community groups. COVID slowed us down for a bit, but we're still at it doing our RJ work. And I wanted to also let you know that we have a new website, and the address is rjpsc.org, or you can Google us at Restorative Justice Program of the Sunshine Coast.
Thank you very much. We really value the work that you do. We do hear of, generically through the RCMP, of the work that you are doing in the community and the impact of that, and it is very beneficial. And we really appreciate you. We like that you're here and supporting our community, and we value the fact that we can actually support you. So thank you very much for your work.
Right back at you. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 5.1. This is the minutes of the regular council meeting of Wednesday, November 3rd, and I'd look for a motion to adopt the minutes. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Plus that. Now, business arising from the minutes. One of the items that we covered in the minutes was the half-masting flag policy, and staff would like to speak to an amendment to that policy. So I'd look to our corporate officer. And use your microphone, please. Thank you.
Camera. Sorry about that, Your Worship. I have prepared the let me back up. At the last council meeting, council considered a Canada flag half-masting policy that really only covered the flag in front of the municipal hall. It was after the fact brought to my attention, or I was reminded that there's also a Canada flag in front of Seaside Centre. So what we are proposing is that this policy be slightly amended under purpose, objective, and scope. Instead of saying that instead of referring to the flag in front of the municipal hall, we just changed it to flags on District of Sechelt owned property, and that will cover off any event. And then the one other minor similar amendment was at the very end. 5.7 previously said council may by resolution deal with flags in front of the City Hall, and again, we changed that to district-owned property. So if council is okay with these proposed amendments, staff suggests that you could pass a resolution adopting the amended policy as presented. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. So I'll move that Council Policy 1.6.14, Canada Flag Half-Masting Policy, be amended to replace references from Town Hall to district-owned property as presented.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. Any questions of council? Seeing no questions, all those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Frank. Moving on to item 7. We have already received these minutes and reports. So are there any questions or comments arising out of the Advisory Planning Commission meeting? Seeing none, I'd move on to item 7.2, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of November 10th. We have received them. I'd look for someone to move to endorse the minutes. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8.1. So 8.1A, this is the Solid Waste Collection, Control, and Disposal Bylaw number 598/2021, and we have Mr. Pelt, Engineering Technician, here with Kern Dillon, Director of Engineering. Over to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start off by just doing a brief introduction first. So Paul Pelt is our engineering technician, and he's been diligently working on this file for quite some time before I arrived at the district. And it's great to see the efforts of all of that work culminate in this new bylaw. So Mr. Pelt will go through it briefly, and will be available for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Kern and Mayor Seegers. The purpose of this report is to bring forward Solid Waste Collection and Control and Disposal Bylaw number 598/2021 for council consideration of first, second, and third readings, while providing information on the new bylaw and new solid waste collection services. This new bylaw is required to start providing organics recycling and blue bin recycling to all Sechelt residents. The existing bylaw had no provisions for organics collections or the servicing of multifamily buildings. On December 6th, the district will start servicing all Sechelt multifamily buildings with blue bin and food waste recycling. We will also start providing their garbage collections. That same week, district households will start receiving weekly food and yard waste curbside collections while moving to biweekly garbage collection, alternating with biweekly blue bin collection. All household collections will now occur on the same day each week. For households, another major part of the new program is distribution of new totes for the 3 waste streams. For education, all residents will receive a startup kit with a kitchen catcher and educational materials. In addition to authorizing the district to provide solid waste collection services, this bylaw also protects wildlife in the district by controlling animal attractants. This is a complicated and far-reaching bylaw, and I have probably not answered a few of the questions that have arisen from my report. So if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them now.
Thank you. Council, any questions of Mr. Pelt? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I guess I've had questions from members of the public about how this will roll out for multifamily buildings. So what may owners or stratas for multifamily buildings be expected? Will we be reaching out to them, or would it be waste management? Because I believe in the bylaw, the frequency of collection will be variable.
Yes, I've been working with strata corporations and multifamily buildings for most of this year. So they're mostly prepared. By and large, they won't notice a lot of difference other than they will now be able to do organics recycling, and every unit in a multifamily building will get the startup kit, which includes a kitchen catcher and of course information. They will also, each building will now have blue bin recycling, and we will take over the garbage. So the average resident of a multifamily building won't notice a whole lot of difference other than the additional services because they already have garbage. So I tried to organize it so it's pretty seamless. Now every one of them had to add areas that are wildlife proof for organics, but the vast majority already had wildlife proof garbage containers because they're basically the existing ones with metal lids that lock. So what I found was most buildings are prepared, and we tried to set it up so that it's not too onerous for them. For organics, for example, they can just build a little chain link area with a chain link roof on it. It's just basically to keep bears out.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor McLean.
I'll keep on going if no one else has, because I have a couple that because I think this is of great interest to residents in the Sunshine or Seashell. That's where we are. Yeah. So another one that I may be changing or may be similar to previous is looking at secondary suites. I noticed that they can be added to the service unit list. So I'm just wondering how that works now and if it'd be changing under a new process.
Okay. Short answer, no, it won't be changing from the current. Right now, we add secondary suites as they're reported, and this doesn't justify the secondary suite, but if they're using the service, then we can charge them for it. We're not looking to legalize anything. We're just trying to provide solid waste for collection for everyone in the district, and we do have that provision that in the bylaw.
Do another question. Okay, so I'll do a question and we'll go back to Councillor McLean. Councillor Toth actually brought one forward, and he unavoidably is missing this evening. On page 31 in our package, under the definition of dwelling unit, item D indicates that a dwelling unit can also be described as a camper or travel trailer used as a dwelling by a person or persons located on land in the service area, whether approved or not. So his question was, how does this relate, or how does it impact our zoning bylaw and other bylaws where these dwelling units aren't legally acknowledged as dwelling units?
Okay. I've talked with our Andrew Allen, the Director of Planning, about this. And this is not a land use regulatory bylaw, and it will not legitimize a camper or travel trailer to be considered a dwelling. We're doing this for safety and to provide a service for everyone in the district. It's, in a way, it's comparable to the civic address system that the SCRD brought in the 1980s, where all dwellings, whether they're legal or not, were given an address so that 911 could locate them. We have areas in Seashell that there are the odd trailer in that, and instead of having solid waste in that not being collected in that, it's better, in our opinion, to provide this service if it's there, and we can charge them under this bylaw, but it doesn't legitimize these units. It just allows us to provide a service to all residents.
Thank you. Director Allen, did you want to add anything, or is it he's pretty much covered it off for you?
That's correct. We did discuss earlier. Thank you, Mayor Segers, and I think Mr. Appelt has passed on the correct information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McLean?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that anyone would be able to request service, and if we, then we would impose a fee for that service, obviously, but they'd be able to get that service.
Yes, we're trying to keep waste out of places that it shouldn't be.
Okay, so larger questions around, I guess, item 2, largely between page 33 and 34, but specifically 2C, every owner or occupier of land within the district other than service units or multifamily buildings shall arrange at his or her own cost the collection and removal of solid waste, recyclables, and organics from the property, minimum of every 2 weeks. So to me, that sounds it's the individual property owner's responsibility to provide garbage service, but it's a district of Sechelt service. So am I misunderstanding that at all, or what is the intent of this section 2?
Okay. Right now, we do not, as a municipality, service through solid waste collection institutional, commercial, or industrial buildings. We've never serviced them. It's always been serviced by the private sector. And under our agreement with Recycle BC, we're actually not allowed to service commercial or institutional with the recycling. The reason section 2 is there is to cover every property or land parcel in Sechelt that we don't service. So that means that a landowner that owns a commercial establishment, for example, they still have to make provision for solid waste collection themselves for their property and whoever's on there, be it a retail store, or in some cases, there's residences above commercial that we weren't able to capture under our present program. It is not to be serviced units, so it's basically anybody we don't service.
Okay. So that makes sense to me, but just something interesting that was mentioned is residential above commercial. So I'm thinking there's a few of those kind of units on Calvary Street. So those will not be included in the new service levels, and they still have to arrange their own?
Yes, right now they're serviced through their the landlord of the property. It was logistically very hard for us to do it because of the separation that was required with Recycle BC. Down the road, the province might be changing the legislation, and that will allow municipalities like ours more leeway to provide this service to maybe everyone, should a council decide that in the future. But everyone does have solid waste service. It's just we, the district, might not be providing it to everyone at this point in time.
Okay, so related to that, but also going back to the question around commercial disposal, does item 2B make a requirement that everyone has organics, including commercial? Because I know right now many commercial businesses don't do organic collection.
Sorry, 2B? I'm just going to look here.
Yeah.
They are supposed to provide waste bins for them. So we are trying to get them to start doing that. And that also ties into, once our bylaw is passed, there's a good chance the SCRD will be putting bans in place for organics in the landfill. And this will also encourage private landowners that we don't service at this time, that they have to arrange these services themselves.
Okay, but that would be an SCRD decision to ban organics.
Yes, it's not a district one.
Would you like me to address that?
Sure.
it actually has been a conversation at the regional district. Staff have brought forward the recommendation that we do ban organics. What is up for debate right now is the date by which we'll do that. Given that the District of Sechelt was looking at implementing organics collection later in the year, staff were hesitant to indicate January 1st of 2022 as the date to ban organics. So now that we are moving forward with implementation, that will be coming back as a conversation at the regional district. And we will be moving forward with an organics ban, but we don't have a date yet. So expect that to be coming shortly.
I have one more, and then I think we're good to go. So that my final one is, there's a list of permitted organics, Schedule D, page 142 of the agenda, and that includes what I would term as yard waste, grass clippings, leaves, and such. So just a question about process. My understanding is that those are supposed to be in a separate bag. Can those be put into the organics bag? Or organics bin?
Oh, at this time, our organics processor will not allow us to mix it. So we have, people under the service will have to do their yard waste in a separate bag, like was done in the Davis Bay pilot program, which was successful and quite well accepted. They're big paper compostable bags for yard waste. Some processors in the province do allow combinations of it, and that's why we went with a bigger green tote, because we want those totes to last for 10 to 20 years, and we don't know, processing might change down the road.
Okay, so I guess I can. Yep. I don't see a place in the bylaw which stipulates that they must be separated. Is that something that we should have in the bylaw?
I thought about that. I tried to do this bylaw so it doesn't have to be changed with every little service change. Right now, what we're prescribing to the people is that they have to do it separately, and that's what we're presenting, but it doesn't. I don't know if we want to do that in the bylaw now, because we might not have the same processor for the duration of this service. That can change through RFPs or whatever, and then the bylaw would still cover it.
Yep. So I guess my concern is rejected loads. That's obviously, at the end of the day, that's what the resident doesn't want to see, is that their load has been rejected by the service provider. So is the stipulations in the bylaw what guides a rejected load, or will there be other policy that guides that?
There are very prescriptive requirements in our contract that we can tell the collector what is and is not done. And we decided to send that information out to the public through education. We have not had a problem in the pilot area with this provision that they had to separate. People were, right from the start, we're going to introduce this, and it's in all our educational materials. So at this point in time, hopefully we will not have to get really prescriptive. If in future we're having that much issue with the general public, we might have to look at that as a bylaw issue going forward. But it wasn't felt necessary at the start of the program.
Okay, but in terms of prescriptive sections of the bylaw, there is one 4J in here that is quite prescriptive. If a bin is loaded to the, it must be loaded 10 centimeters below the brim. That's a very specific number.
Yes.
So would that lead to a rejected load as well?
That's actually a very old provision. It was in the past bylaws and that, and it was more tied to garbage. So if people are constantly overfilling their new tote and leaving the lid open, and we don't have the service interruptions that we've been dealing with the last while, there should be no need for that. And for garbage, they can buy an extra tag. And for recycling, under the bylaw and also under our contract, we can provide up to 3 totes for the recycling. So for organics and for blue bin. So if somebody constantly needs more, we would rather they have a tote, because we're going to more automated system, and having the lids open in that can lead to, when the arm lifts, it can dump debris on the ground because it's up above the lid. My experience doing solid waste is in the district, we have never had an issue with this that has led to a lot of problems, other than maybe a landowner would do it with garbage and we'd say it might be rejected, but they're given an oops tag with a explanation, and they would be told to buy garbage tags. So most people are pretty good with it. We haven't had a lot of issues, but it is there to make sure that it doesn't become an issue. I would like to note that it is in the current bylaw, and they haven't been rejecting loads during the service issue, where I've seen totes and everything way overloaded with solid waste because of all the missed collections.
I'm just going to address Councillor McLean's comment as well. I know that behind the scenes, staff have been working with Waste Management on educational material that will be going out with the bins. Will be very clearly identified that the garden waste does not go in the bin, and we'll be providing them with samples of the bags that they are to use for that. So, you know, as Mr. Pelt's saying, it's more about education, and that it'll be clearly identified in the material that's provided to all the residents. Anything follow up?
No, I think that's about it. I want to thank staff for answering all of my questions. This is a new program for Seashell, but I think it's going to be really good to expand their organics. And the move to biweekly garbage collection, it is an inconvenience to some people, but I think it's something we need to do to really shift our culture of garbage. And really make people think about the garbage that they're producing and can they divert it to other streams. And that will be critical for our environment, for our dump, and for our community.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? Not seeing any other questions. There is a recommendation on page 26. What would council like to do? Councillor McLean.
I may as well do it because I asked all the questions. I'll move recommendation 2 that council give first, second, and third readings to solid waste collection, control, and disposal bylaw number 598, 2021.
And is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconder? All those in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to the bylaw. This is item 8.1B, starting on page 30. And we're looking for first, second, and third readings. So the District of Sechelt bylaw number 598, 2021, a bylaw to provide for the control, collection, and disposal of solid waste and recyclables. And would someone like to move first reading? Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then District of Sechelt bylaw number 598, 2021, a bylaw to provide for the control, collection, and disposal of solid waste and recyclables. And someone move second reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then District of Sechelt bylaw number 598, 2021, a bylaw to provide for the control, collection, and disposal of solid waste and recyclables. And I'd look for someone to move third reading. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, staff. Looking forward to the implementation of this program. Moving on. Item 8.3, we're going to skip over 8.2. So 8.3 is Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw number 568-3, 2021, and we'll turn it over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider amendments to Council's Procedure Bylaw number 568 related to electronic meetings. Back in June of 2020, a ministerial order was passed that allowed local governments to meet electronically, as we have been doing for a number of months. That order expired on September 29th and was replaced by Bill 10, which also came into force and effect on September 29th. And it it amends the community charter to permit regular and special and committee council meetings to be held by electronic means. The new legislation basically states that the meeting can be conducted by electronic means as long as it's in a procedure bylaw, as long as it includes procedures for how that shall be done. And it also states that the council procedure bylaw must establish procedures for giving advance public notice and how to join the meeting electronically, and the place where people can hear or watch and hear the proceedings in public. And the facilities must enable any participants and the public to hear and or watch and hear. And the new legislation also says that a designated municipal officer must be in attendance physically at the place. And most importantly, the new legislation says that members of council who are participating in a meeting electronically are deemed to be present at the meeting, whether physically there or not. So the staff have gone through council's current bylaw and made some amendments at different places throughout the bylaw just to reflect this new legislation. I have set it out here in my report. If council has any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any questions of our corporate officer on this procedure bylaw? Councillor McLean.
So these changes enable electronic participation in council meetings. How would we determine if a meeting is held fully electronically or in person? Does the item that says it should be held within municipal offices be the default? Yeah.
So with this new legislation, council, you could hold a meeting and not have any council present, but there must be one designated municipal officer. With the new regulations, the idea that the public wouldn't be allowed in a meeting due to COVID concerns, that's gone now. So we would always have the facilities open and available for limited seating, whatever we can do. There has to be one staff person here, and the only thing that would change from that is if something should change with the pandemic and the province puts in place new provincial orders, we could be back, for example, to nobody allowed to be in the room. But if that were the case, that would override whatever is in our procedure bylaw, just as it has over the last 2 years. I don't know if I've answered your question. No.
For the most part, yes. So what I'm hearing is that unless otherwise ordered by the province, there will always be a municipal officer here, so that is a staff member, and they will enable public participation here, and that is governed by the community charter, not this bylaw.
Correct.
Yes, but our bylaw has to also reflect that, which is why we're looking at changing this. One of the issues we've had is that our bylaw that's currently in place requires quorum in the room. So today we had 2 councillors that could not physically be here. If Councillor Lamb had not shown up, we could not have held this meeting, even though Councillor Scott was online. So it allows us more flexibility around meetings, as long as we have quorum attending either in the room physically or electronically. The meeting is statutorily constituted and we can proceed with business. Otherwise, if Councillor Lamb had chosen this evening to come virtually, we would not have been able to hold this meeting, even though we would have had 5 councillors available or 5 members of council available. So that gives us that flexibility around that.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Councillor McLean?
Yeah, just to give greater clarity to my question, I think I've answered it it is answered in section 8.2. Except for any part of the meeting that's closed to the public, the facilities must enable the public to hear or watch and hear the meeting at the specified place, and a designated municipal officer must be in attendance. So that section really ensures that the public will be able to watch municipal meetings, whether they're held online, held in person, at the designated place.
Correct.
All All right, any other questions or comments on the procedure bylaw? All right, there is a recommendation on page 47. Would council like to move that recommendation? Councillor Kuster?
I'll move recommendation number 2, that council proceed with giving first, second, and third reading to council procedure amendment bylaw number 568-3, 2021.
Is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. So moving to 8.3B, this is on page 71. We're looking for first, second, and third reading. So the District of Sechelt bylaw number 568-3, 2021, a bylaw to amend council procedure bylaw number 568, 2018. And look for someone to move first reading. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Then, District of Sechelt bylaw number 568-3, 2021, a bylaw to amend council procedure bylaw number 568, 2018. Someone to move second reading. Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then, District of Sechelt bylaw number 568-3, 2021, a bylaw to amend council procedure bylaw number 568, 2018, and someone to move third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Frank. Moving on to item 10.1, notice on title for 4684 Sunshine Coast Highway. Let me just find it in my agenda package. 10.1, sorry, I skipped a couple here. And we have a representative for the owner in the gallery who would like to speak to this. So we will. Oh, do we want to do a report first, or do we want him to speak to this first? What would you like us to do? Okay. And while we're doing that, we could have Mr. Holt come into the room. He's in, okay. Yeah. So we'll turn to staff. Chief Building Official, would you like to, is this Director Allen or is Mr. Nyhus? Who's leading
Mr.
off?
Nyhus is here.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship. At the May regular council meeting, council decided to defer decision on recommendation for a notice on title for contravention of the building bylaw until such time it could be confirmed that the owner had been informed of the date of the council meeting to decide on the matter. I can confirm to council that the owner has been informed of the meeting and that the registered letter sent to him on October 13th, 2021, informing him of this meeting was in fact delivered on October 29th. That's all I have to do, all I have to say to add to my report.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holt, did you want to speak to this? And you'll need to unmute your microphone.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Thank you.
Let me just preface this with saying it's 47 minutes of my life I'll never get back. I'm here representing Alan Choker, who's away outside the country at the moment. And I've been involved with him since the beginning. And can we find no terms listed of which infraction of the building code has been broken? It's never been stated ever. And just what exactly is the section of the building code that has been broken or not adhered to? Once we get that down, we can deal with the issue we have at hand.
Mr. Nyhus, can you give some more clarity to what Mr. Holt is speaking to?
Certainly. There was a structure being constructed on the front of the property without a permit. The district building bylaw defines a structure as means a construction or portion thereof of any kind, whether fixed to or supported or sunken in the land or water, but specifically excludes landscaping, flagpoles, fences, patios, paving, and retaining structures less than 1.2 meters. In this particular case, the structure is a deck with a frame assembly above the deck, which we assume is intended to bear a roof.
Thank you. Councilor McLean?
Yeah, to our chief building official, I note that patios are exempted, but this is being called a deck. So what would be the difference in the definition of those two? And what makes this structure a deck, not a patio?
Patio is typically, through the mayor to Councillor McLean, a patio is a concrete pad placed on grade, whereas a deck is an elevated structure constructed from typically wood frame construction. The fact that it is attached to the building makes it subject to the building bylaw, whereas if it was freestanding and not attached to the building, did not have a height greater than 0.6 meters at any point or had a roof, it would be deemed to be just landscaping and would not be subject to the requirements of the building bylaw.
Which is exactly what it is.
Just for clarity, the subject property, is it greater than 0.6 meters? Does it have a roof, and is it connected?
It is connected to the building in the opinion of our building official who posted the stop work order, and it does appear to have a structure above the deck.
Thank you.
Mr. Holt, did you want to address any of that?
Yeah, we cut to the chase. So
Sorry,
if the building
Mr.
department can just
Mr. Holt, sorry.
Yes.
We're finding it difficult to understand you. It's breaking up. Are you close to your microphone?
Any closer and be on the other side.
Yeah, this is a bad connection that we have.
Tell us.
Can you try speaking again?
Okay. Can the building department send out exactly what they think they're looking at? I just have to forward this information to Mr. Choker so he can give it to his lawyer.
The building department posted a stop work order and required a building permit application. Mr. Choker, after the first stop work order had been posted, had communicated with the building official who posted it and said that he was working with an engineer to put together plans for a permit application. That was the last communication we had from him at that point.
Perfect.
All right. Any other questions or comments, Mr. Holt?
No, we just need to find out what law it is we've broken, because I read the building code 20 times, so it's broken.
Okay, and I think what our chief building official has indicated is that a building permit has not been applied for the building that's happening on the property.
Mr. Choker attended the planning department and asked for a building permit. They told him he didn't need one. Does that sound familiar? Like I said, it's I'm just passing the message on. I'm just the messenger.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holt.
Councilor McLean.
Thank you, Councilor McLean.
Okay, I am satisfied with our chief buildings official's judgment on this, and I appreciate the comments from the property owner's representative, but I'm ready to move a motion. I will move recommendation, I guess 1, which is mislabeled, that the corporate officer be directed to file notice in the Land Title Office in accordance with Section 57 of the Community Charter against 4684 Sunshine Coast Highway, legally described as Lot 4 BL4DL 1356 Plan 7006. And the next recommendation, that upon confirmation from the chief building official that all outstanding issues are resolved and that the required permits, certifications, and inspection approved, the notice may be discharged from the title upon receipt of the required fee.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for those recommendations? Seconded. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Knives. Moving on to item 10.2. This is Arts, Culture, and Communications Coordinator talking about the 2022 Canadian Heritage Celebrate Canada Grant. Ms. Smith, over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before you is a report seeking approval from Council to apply for funding from the Canadian Heritage Celebrate Canada Fund. As you'll note in the report, this is a grant program that we apply to every year to help support our Canada Day celebrations. And this year, staff are recommending that we also apply for funding to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day. It would all be one application, but for separate events because the requirement of the grant is for the events to take place on the designated day. Although the programming activities and events are still in development, we're bringing this forward to you now due to the grant deadline being Monday. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Councillor McLean?
This is something we apply for every year, so I'd be happy to move recommendation 2 that Council direct staff to submit an application to the Celebrate Canada Fund for the purpose of obtaining a grant.
And is there a seconder for the recommendation? Seconded? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10.3. This is the Community Dedication Program, and we have our Parks Manager, Jamie Anderson, with us this evening. Over to you, Jamie.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Before you is the report pertaining to the Community Dedication Program, Council Policy 5.3.2. As you've probably read in the report, the fees charged for our dedicated items no longer cover the cost associated, and staff have proposed an updated fee structure. And we do find that the program is still positively received, and it does provide site furnishings to the public at no cost to our taxpayers. So we're still finding it a great program. I would say in the last year, we've procured over 10,000, probably between $10,000 and $12,000 worth of new park benches. So we are hoping that Council will endorse this. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, just looking at the policy, section 6, a new item within that, it says at the end of the 10-year period, the benefactor will be given first opportunity to rededicate the item. So I'm wondering, is there a separate rededication fee, or would that be the full amount that they originally paid, or what is specified in the bylaw currently?
We're just saying that the rededication would be the same amount as what they paid in the first place. They're just given first crack at that location again.
Okay, so the rededication, how that works is if a bench is damaged and it's not rededicated, we put a new one in. They'd have an opportunity to put their name in again. But if it's less than 10 years, it's damaged and it needs to be replaced, that will automatically happen.
Exactly. Yeah. The nice thing about these new benches too is you can get replacement planks. If there is vandalism, we can replace one plank on them. So yeah, the maintenance is far less with this new style of recycled plastic. So I think it's a good fit.
Thank you. Council, any other questions or comments? So there are some recommendations on page 79. Councillor Kuster?
I'll move recommendation number 2, that Council approve an amendment to fees and charges bylaw number 575, 2019 pertaining to revised community dedication bench and picnic table costs. And item 3, that Council approve the proposed updates to Council Policy 5.3.2 Community Dedication Program.
Is there a seconder for the recommendations? Seconded? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to move back to item 8.2. 8.2 is the District of Sechelt Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 575-4, 2021, and over to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this fees and charges amendment bylaw is in front of Council for consideration of first, second, and third reading. It incorporates 2 separate items. The first being proposed amendments to Schedule B of the bylaw, which is the administration fees schedule, and it proposes to amend the fees for the community dedication program per the report that you just heard from our parks manager. The second amendment proposed is the revised fees for the solid waste control bylaw that council considered earlier in this meeting, and that has been accomplished by attaching a brand new Schedule H. I would note that the fees used to be included in the old solid waste control bylaw, but several years ago staff worked at creating one fees and charges bylaw that would have all the district's fees so that they wouldn't be scattered through multiple bylaws. So that's why you're seeing this today, that the new fees will be added to our fees and charges bylaw. That's my report. If you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Councillor McLean.
There we go. Just regarding the solid waste fees, do we need to specify the unit per fee? So, for example, would it be per service dwelling unit, or is that assumed in best practices?
I would like to, Your Worship, defer that question to Mr. Douglas, Director of Finance, as he is more familiar with the fee schedule than I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Douglas?
Thank you for the question, Councillor McLean. Yeah, you know what? I would have to agree with you. I would, if I could have a second, I'd go look back at the previous bylaw on solid waste, because it was in that bylaw, and it was, I think it's stated there per unit. I'm just trying to locate the clause here. It says for each dwelling that is located on or under construction in the sewer fees bylaw. So I think, or the sewer bylaw. So I think it's covered there.
Sorry, Mr. Douglas, you said sewer bylaw? Are you talking about solid waste bylaw?
Solid waste bylaw. I apologize.
Do you have the page that you're referring to? Charges and fees. Okay, so page 36 in our package. Every owner of a land parcel
For each dwelling that is located on.
per service unit, yeah.
Your Worship?
Yes.
If I may just note that there is a typographical error there that staff have noted and will correct in that first sentence. Every owner of land parcel within the service area shall pay the district the annual collection charge as prescribed in the district's current fees and charges bylaw for each dwelling. That should be for instead of or. Might make the sentence make more sense.
Okay, I'm satisfied. I think it's this section of the solid waste bylaw provides the detail that I was looking for. So if staff is satisfied, I am.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments about this report? Seeing none, there's a recommendation on page 43. Thank you, Councillor McLean.
I'll move recommendation 2 that District of Seashell Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 575-4/2021 to be read a first, second, and third time.
Seconder for the recommendation. Seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Let's move to item 8.2B, which will be the Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw, number 575-4, 2021. This is a bylaw to amend fees and charges for certain District of Sechelt municipal services. And I'd look for someone to move first reading. Moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And second reading of District of Sechelt Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 575-4, 2021, a bylaw to amend fees and charges for certain District of Sechelt municipal services. Someone like to move second reading? Moved, seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And then District of Sechelt Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw number 575-4, 2021, a bylaw to amend fees and charges for certain District of Sechelt municipal services. I look for someone to move third reading. Moved, seconded, all in favor. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10.4, sports fields update. Sorry, let me get back to that in my agenda. 10.4, this is a report that Council asked for. So it's the District of Sechelt Sports Fields Update. And is Mr. Anderson with us or Mr. Dillon? Over to you.
Your Worship, I'll briefly introduce the matter. A few councils ago, Council wanted to know the impact of the drought situation we had last summer on the sports field in terms of operations and maintenance, effects to user groups, and what the plans are going forward. So our manager of parks, Mr. Jamie Anderson, has prepared the report for information, and I'll let him present it now.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you very much. Yes, the purpose of the report is to provide an update on our sports fields following the unprecedented summer this year with our drought conditions and heat dome. As you know, there is other challenges that we faced this year. The district had our tractor stolen. We've seen multiple events of vandalism on some of our sports fields. So it was a challenging year for the District of Sechelt, but it was a very challenging year for all turf managers on the Sunshine Coast. And we do all work quite closely together. We do talk quite often, and we are working together to better the sports fields for everyone on the coast. A couple of little things that have come in since the writing of this report. Good news with Ted Dixon Field, that has reopened. So that should hopefully take some of the pressure off Kinnickinnick, because it's the only other full-size sports field in Sechelt that's got lights. So for practicing at night, with the loss of Ted Dixon there early in the season, it was it put a lot of extra wear and tear on our fields at Kinnickinnick, but or I should say field at Kinnickinnick. Yeah, other than that, we've actually, I got a growing conditions report from some of my colleagues at the regional district, Nathan Wade, and at Sunshine Coast Golf and Country Club. The superintendent there, Jason Haynes, has just sent me a conditions report, growing condition report on the Sunshine Coast, and it really did highlight a lot of things. Basically, it highlighted the fact that we've got 3 months of optimal growing conditions in 2021. So basically, we're looking at, I believe, June, July, and August. We're at the optimal temperature for growing turf grass, and for a good part of that time, we had no water. So it really does come down to the fact that we were in a brutal year for water restrictions, and it's taken a major toll on our assets. So I have included quite a bit in the report there, detailing the dates and stuff that we entered the different water restriction stages. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments on this? Councillor McLean.
First of all, I just appreciate that you reached out to Jason Haynes. His data analytics is actually world-class. He's a world leader in tracking turf grass.
Yeah.
It's amazing what he could do. But my actual question is, what do you believe is the largest difference between Kinnickinnick Park and Hackett Park? Hackett Park seems to be in considerably better condition than Kinnickinnick right now. what really made the difference there?
Well, basically, your subsurface conditions are going to be different at all fields on the coast. If you look at each field individually, they all have a different base. The upper field at Kinnickinnick is basically a giant sand pile above grade. So, your evapotranspiration rates are going to be much higher up there. You can actually see heat waves coming off of the upper field. The lower field is also sand-based, but the fact that it's at grade, it's not elevated. The evapotranspiration rates for that field are less. Hackett has much more original, I'd say, parent soil below the field. So there is, when you do soil probe tests, it's mostly a sand base, like all our fields, but I believe there's a bit more organic matter below that. So it does hold the water a bit better. And when you make it through a growing season with your turf cover intact, you're going into the next season in better shape. And Hackett is one of those fields that's kind of always come through better, which means you're not starting from scratch again. Whereas Piccadilly, I would say the turf cover loss was definitely around the 50 to 60%. The upper field at Kinnickinnick was even higher. I would estimate that to be almost 75%, plant loss up there. So you really are almost starting from scratch again. And the window for seeding is really small. We had no irrigation. And then our temperatures really dropped in September. So normally, I shouldn't say normally, but quite often we get a nice warm September. And you can germinate grass well, and then it will actually continue to grow. This year we got a great germination, but the temperatures dropped, and then you're hoping, or the soccer clubs are hoping to get on that field right away, and you just can't throw hundreds of kids on a newly seeded field and hope that it'll make it through a full season. So a lot of challenges. I would say water would be the biggest thing that would help us maintain these assets in the future. I have put in for next year an increase to the seed fertilizer budget, which would also include the addition of a product called a wetting agent. That will help us if we have, the ability to water. If we don't have the ability to water, or there is no precipitation, a wetting agent isn't going to do us a lot of good. But what it will do is help retain moisture in that top layer of the field profile. So that top 5 centimeters, it does hold the moisture and makes it available to the plant. So if we can include that to our program next year and additional seeding, and if we get water, I think we'll be in a lot better shape. We are actually in really good shape this year going into the spring, but the summer was a killer. So I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful that maybe Church Road Well comes online next year. If it doesn't, I'm hoping for a wetter summer. And, the other thought I had was, adjustments to the SCRD's stage 2 water restrictions. I don't know if that's palatable, but basically at 40% reduction, we can't maintain turf grass on a sand-based field. So I understand that we all need water for other uses, but we are at risk of losing some of our assets here.
Councillor McLean.
So just brief idea regarding the stage 2 SCRD. Rather than reducing 40% across the board, could we pick and choose which ones we are watering and maybe put some of that focus on some of our drier fields?
That would be something that would have to be discussed for sure. Any additional water would be welcomed by myself.
I noticed one of the items you indicated on page 88 was that an alternate water source for Kinnickinnick may be considered, and one of the items indicated is a drilled well. Is that something that's even been looked at ever for that area?
I don't believe so. But I'll defer to Director Dillon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. So we did look at the possibility of a groundwater well, unfortunately, the approval times for wells from the province is quite a lengthy process. We would be looking at approximately 2 years to have a well up and running up there if there was a groundwater aquifer that we could actually reach and make it viable. So given the urgency of the situation that Mr. Anderson has conveyed, I think we're looking for more short-term solutions to what's happening there, and a well might be further down the road, but does take some time to put in place.
Okay, just going to follow up on that. I know that when the regional district was looking at locations for aquifers on the Sunshine Coast, they pretty much mapped the area. I believe there's information available as to whether or not there is actually an aquifer up there that could be tapped potentially. And if it's a 2-year cycle or a 2-year time frame to get a well in place, that still is something that would need to be started at some point in order to bring it online. If we wait until next year, then it's another 2 years after that before it's here. We are hopeful at the regional district that the Church Road well field will be in operation by August or September of next year. No guarantees at this point because we don't know. I mean, it's a construction process just like anything else. We are putting an incentive in the contract to hopefully have it finished quicker. But again, we don't know what's going to happen with that. So I think we need to look at how we can be self-sufficient to ensure that our staff aren't rebuilding this every year. And, our community has the services and the sites that they're looking to use. So I'll leave that with you and see how you want to proceed. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I just look at it and I see that 50% of our fields are out of commission during peak sports season. I'd love to see all 4 up and running all fall through the summer too. I know they get a little less use, but they're definitely still used plenty in the summer. So I think it's of critical importance that we provide this service to the community. Just one more idea to throw out there is trucking and water. I know some of our public works trucks do have the tanks on them for salting. So I know we can carry water ourselves. So I don't know what the scale of would be, but I'd be interested to see if that could even be feasible.
Yeah, we did consider that. I wasn't considering the larger single axle trucks because they can actually do damage to the fields as well. I think for a single cycle at Kinnickinnic, we were looking at something like 14 to 16,000 liters per irrigation cycle. So that's a significant amount. Driving all over the field is not optimal. We did think about that with the 1 tons, with the smaller vehicles, to lessen the impact, but the amount of water that we could carry in a truck to even flood that field, it was just not possible. You didn't have enough hours in a day. We were trying to also maintain the entire district, gardens, baskets, trees, with, even an additional water truck put online. So yeah, it wasn't feasible this year. It's something we could look at maybe in the future, but I don't really see it as an option driving all over the field. But yeah, something to think about anyway.
So, Your Worship, my sense is that Council would like some solutions, and I understand that we all want solutions here. I think one solution we are presenting, and I don't know if Mr. Anderson spoke to this earlier, but he could certainly provide more details after I speak, is that we are doing some irrigation system upgrades next year at Kinnickinnic Field, which, if approved as part of the 22 and 22 budget, should alleviate some of the issues with watering there. Would you like to add additional details, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, we definitely have some inefficiencies on the field. When we do have water, we're going to be making better use of our water if these items are approved. We do have, aging irrigation controllers. The system needs a full audit. with the staffing levels that we've had over the years, we just cannot provide irrigation audits for all our systems. But yeah, there is additional money being asked for new valves, new nozzles, new heads, and new controllers, because we did have some faults on the old existing controller. That I think that's been in place since the field was built. I can't remember exactly what year that was, but that's long before my time. So yeah, some of these items are definitely going to help efficiencies with the system, and irrigation audits are something that I'm going to be doing next year anyway, just to look for efficiencies. But the overall design is not what I would hope to see. If we were building a new field, we would not be building it with the layout that it's got right now with the irrigation system.
Thank you. And I will check with the regional district about those aquifer reports that were done and see if I can provide some information.
That'd be appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I think that this is something we have to look very seriously at, because, you know, right now what we're doing is we're collecting water, going into a reservoir, we're treating it, sending it down a pipe, and moving it over to our parks. And that water is water that's, you know, it's potable water. It's water that we use to, you know, to drink or make tea with or whatever we're doing. And there's, you know, everybody's talking about recycled water. You know, so I think it's something we have to look very seriously at to find a different use for that water. You know, we treat it, we clean it, we treat it, we send it all the way up there, and then we put it on a sports field that is, you know, and I don't know, you know, there is you know, it's a silly thing, but, you know, is there a rainwater collector? You know, you're talking 16,000 liters per, you know, every time you water the field. I'm not really too sure if there's just, you know, somehow you collect rainwater up there. I don't know. But we had a lot of liters drop the last 4 or 5 days, so maybe we can see. Anyways, I just figure it's a very important thing. You know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the report? Thank you for taking the time to put that together. It really shows us and the community the work that you're doing to try and maintain these, and that, you know, we have to come up with some kind of solution so that we save your time and we make the fields more available to the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 10.5. This is the 2021 third quarter financial operating report. And we have Ms. Smith with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Seegers and Council. Excuse me. I'm going to share my screen. How does that look?
You're good.
Good. Just going to move. All right. I'd like to present the 2021 third quarter operating financial report. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update of the district's financial activity for the period of January 1st to September 30th, 2021, and to compare that activity to the 2021 financial plan and the comparable period in 2020. The information in the quarterly budget variance report is a comparison of the budget amounts to actual revenues and expenditures for operating departments. Also included in the package is a report for capital projects at the end of the third quarter of 21. At the end of the third quarter of 2021, operating revenues were at 93% and expenditures were at 61% compared to annual budget. This compares to 97% and 64% for the 2020 period of the same period in 2020. Though we're slightly behind this year, we do expect to complete on budget by the end of the year. Most of 2021 revenues have been received by the end of the third quarter, as property taxes and user fees are billed on the annual property tax notice and accounted for during the month of May. License permit fees revenue continue to track well in the third quarter and exceeding annual budget numbers. This revenue includes planning, engineering, service agreements, building inspection, bylaws, and licensing, just to name a few. Expenditures are tracking favorably against the 21 budget, as mentioned in the previous screen, and the district has spent 61% of the operating budget expenditures. Again, expenses are behind a little bit this year, based mainly due to the impact of COVID and the inability for us to travel. In addition, the RCM contracts are billed in October, so they're not reflective in the September month end. Salaries and budgets are on track to finish the year on budget. Salary and benefit expenses are currently 64%. And this is primarily due to hiring vacant positions. Further notes on the department expenses is provided in the quarterly budget variance report, which is attachment number 1 to this report. This table shows expenses compared to budget by government functions. These reports are similar to, the results of this are similar to the 2020 numbers in the same period. Property tax show the number of folios per property tax that makes up the property tax base in the district, and the majority being 93% residential, 5% is business, and then the remaining 2% is the other 7 classes. Though the number of folios equate to 93%, only 5% of the total taxes collected are from residential, and this is due to the multipliers on classes other than residential. In 2021, the residential folios increased by 14, while all other categories combined had an increase of 19. Total folios by class is 6,364, while total folios in the district is 6,175. And this is the differences because of the properties having dual classes. Overall, outstanding taxes for 2021 has decreased by 31% when compared to 2020, and with the majority of the change due to the current year's taxes. Arrears has a significant decrease when compared to the past 2 years, and delinquent is trending downwards compared to last year's numbers. The current year outstanding taxes is comprised of the 2021 unpaid taxes, arrears is the 2020 unpaid taxes, and delinquent is 2019 and older. And of the total 1 million of outstanding taxes, 4% is residential. So finally, included in this report is the capital variance report, which I mentioned earlier, which is attachment number 2. That includes all the updates of the capital projects and expenditures and status updates of each project. In regards to actual capital project expenditures compared to total budget of the year, significant amounts of project costs do tend to be spent usually at the last quarter of the year. And that's the end of my presentation. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions on the third quarter financial report? And Ms. Smith, do you want to stop sharing your screen there?
Oh, I thought I did.
Thank you. Now we could see the nice background you have with the trees and the path. All right.
Can you still see it?
No, we're good.
Good.
All right. Seeing no questions, we will move on to the Engineering and Operations Division capital project updates. Mr. Dillon.
No presentation, Your Worship, but available for questions on any of the capital projects.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
We had
down here. Our corporate officer just put her coat on because it's cold down here.
Well, I was just going to add, Your Worship, that we've had a few impromptu projects from the effects of the storm event that we've had. So that has been our main focus, but capital projects are in a good place right now, and the contractors we have are working away There was a kickoff meeting today at the airport to start with the lighting project there. So that's something I can report today that is recent news that wasn't captured in that report.
Thank you. So the lighting is being installed?
I think it was a meeting for the ducting work. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think given our rain event that we had in the last few days, I think some of us are watching for the airport lighting to get installed, because we're seeing in some places in the Lower Mainland particularly, they're using helicopters, they're using planes to bring in supplies to some areas. So I think personally I'd like to have that complete just for safety purposes, so that we know we've got that as a backup if we need it. Any questions on the engineering operations capital projects update report? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I did read your report, and I'm just wondering, I didn't see anything there with regards to the reclaimed water or the Dusty Road project. And there is a fairly large grant that could be applied for, and so I'm just wondering if you had started any work with regards to that. Thank
you. Yes, through your worship. So the capital project update is mainly, it doesn't capture every single thing we're working on or planning study. It was intended to provide an update on the stuff you'll see on the ground mostly, or stuff that's imminently about to be constructed. So that's why it wasn't included in the capital update report. With regards to Dusty Road, we did look at the applicability of, I believe it's the environmental quality grant that has come out from the province to do some work. And based on the timing of their award, we felt that that was not a good match. That particular grant opportunity was not a good match for Dusty Road. Needless to say, we do have funding set aside to study the long-term plan for Dusty Road, what we're going to do with that facility, and what needs to happen in the future. So the planning work is underway, but we may not be aligned to take advantage of that particular grant opportunity, unfortunately.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're doing here, and you've only been in your position for a short period of time. I guess the disappointment for myself here is that, I was part of the team that brought that facility to the Sunshine, to Seashell. And, when it was set up to be a facility that would actually generate funds back into the community. It would pay its way, and it would pay, it would put money back into the community for the community to use on different needs, or even to move the facility forward as it needs to expand. So obviously over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been something has been lost, and this council is only here for 1 more year, and then you have a full change maybe of councillors. And the biggest thing for myself here is if we lose this momentum again, we've got a first-class facility that is still recognized by the Green Monetary Fund, by, it's won so many awards. So, I'm going to be on to try and move this as much as we can, to move this forward so that the staff here understands it, and to move this the asset that we have for this community. I don't want to see it go backwards, and I want to see it move forward, and I want it to be, the best in the world that it was at one time. So that's just my take on what's going on here. So thank you.
So through your worship, a few comments in response to that, and just to understand, we are talking about the Water Resource Center now, and not Dusty Roads. Is that correct?
No, because it was all part and parcel. You know,
Okay.
the water resource center was the first part of it, and the Dusty Road, it should have moved on. It should have become part and parcel to it. And the Dusty Road thing, from what I remember, was something where there could have been, that's where the potential for more funds into the community was there in that piece of it. So, you know, and once again, we have a lease that's coming up there, you know, in a short period of time. So, and it gets shorter every year. So, you know, just my thoughts. Thank you.
Mr. Dillon, did you want to make any comments?
Yeah, I think I will say that the district did have a staff shortage to advance some of these initiatives for many years. Since I have come on, we have just recently hired a summer student or a student who's going to come back, we have a partnering program with Okanagan College who trains wastewater operators. So that person is now working there, and this looks like a good partnership to bring in new wastewater operators. We just hired a level 2 who joined us from West Kelowna. He started on Monday. We have a new chief wastewater operator starting in mid-December. So in my time here, staffing levels could potentially be at the water resource at full staff levels, which would be amazing and is a great positive thing. Another thing that occurred during the storm that we had is our wastewater team managed to keep our plant operating. It was intended to be designed for a peak flow of 6,000 cubic meters per day. During the rain event, we got up to 4,900 cubic meters per day, just from infiltration and into the system, which I've discussed before. And so that 6,000 was based on 4 batch reactors running. Currently, we have 3 up and running. So whatever our wastewater treatment team did, it was quite remarkable, and they managed to keep things running and hit their compliance targets all through that. So I feel that we do have momentum, and we're keeping the momentum, and we're waiting right now on their reclaimed water feasibility study, which should inform how we would intend to go forward with reclaimed water and how we want to use it. So all these initiatives are being forwarded, and they will continue to move forward.
Yeah, and once again, I commemorate you for what you've done in the short period of time you've got here, because just getting up to speed with this facility is you've got a lot of other things on your plate, and where we are with staffing right now, it's awesome. It's the first time in 6 years or probably since conception that the thing has actually had a full staff. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. And, I just want to make sure that we take, opportunities as they come, and hopefully we get to a place where we achieve what the goal was in the initial upset. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Any other questions or comments about the capital project update report? I look forward to Wharf Avenue starting. That'll be starting early 2022. So it'll be nice to see that happen.
Yes, Your Worship, and the project's out to tender now, so we're just waiting for bids from contractors.
Thank you very much. All right, in our agenda, we will move on to item 11.1. This is councillor reports. Who'd like to start? And we'll start wherever. Who wants to start, and then we'll go around. No volunteers? Councillor McLean. Okay, so we'll do Councillor McLean, then Councillor Kuster, Councillor Lamb, and then Councillor Scott. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to report. I've already said enough today, I think. I just wanted to thank all of our staff for their work during these flooding events. I went out and toured the town, and I saw District of Sechelt staff absolutely everywhere. I think we were full tilt trying to keep those drains clear, prevent the flooding. And despite some damages, I think Sechelt fared very well. So I want to commend staff for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
I would just like to thank Carrie Ann for coming and helping me get my computer working properly. It's been a long time, so I'm hoping that I can, get my emails and attend the meetings that I've missed. So, and I do thank staff. Sechelt's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Nothing to report for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a number of things. I realized I thought this last couple of weeks were busy, and then I started writing things out, and it was. So first off, after our last council meeting, the following day was the elections at the regional district for chair and vice chair. And Director Lori Pratt indicated she would not be running. She stepped down as chair. So I put my name forward, and I was elected chair of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. So the last couple of weeks has been, again, a steep learning curve, and I'm trying to stay on top of emails. I'm not. So if you've sent me an email, just please be patient. It's going to take me a bit to get caught up on everything. I did meet with Sergeant Newman from the RCMP. One of the changes that's happened recently at the regional district is the regional district has dissolved the policing and public safety meeting, or the committee, and so they won't be meeting anymore. So the RCMP is actually going to take on setting up those meetings on a regular basis. Given it's a new role for them, I offered to assist for the first couple to get them all set up. So we met to talk about that and how that would move forward. He also indicated that there's been a lot of correspondence and communication between him and other levels in the RCMP. And he said it was all our fault, government's fault. But he said it's not a bad thing. He said what we have done is we have raised the profile of the RCMP and their needs here on the Sunshine Coast with other levels of government and other levels in the RCMP. And so once he actually had them understanding that we really, appreciate what the RCMP do and that we're advocating on their behalf, they really started opening up and listening. And he said it's made some differences for them in when they're requesting support from the Lower Mainland. And one big difference that had not been recognized was in the Lower Mainland, when they have an RCMP officer who's on leave, they have all the other municipalities around them where they can pull members who might do some overtime and fill in those spots. We're kind of isolated up here. And so if we have RCMP officers on leave for whatever, sick leave, paternity leave, whatever kind of leave, we don't have other bodies to fill those in. So what happens is that the remaining members actually put in a lot of overtime, and it leads to a very high burnout rate and a lot more stress. So in the Lower Mainland now, they're recognizing that. They're recognizing that that's an issue. So he actually was thankful that we did that, and he indicated that in the past, with the staff sergeant in place, there was a recommendation or a request for additional members from the province. That was denied. He said he has now put in a request for 2 additional members, and because of the advocacy that we've been doing on the Sunshine Coast for our RCMP, he believes we could have a good chance of getting those members from the province. So we'll see what happens from that. So it's nice to know that, we're being heard when we talk with the province about some of the issues that we have on the Sunshine Coast. And I wanted to talk about the Innovation Center. So as you know, there's the House of Clans that's being built beside Big Mac's on the highway. The main floor of that, there is a group of organizations in town who have looked at putting together kind of an innovation lab or an innovation center and they're looking at having some key core tenants. So it would bring together organizations like Community Resource Center, the Escrito Regional Economic Development Organization, Community Futures, Community Foundation, Powerhouse as key tenants of that, and they'd look at having that be an innovation center for the whole of the Sunshine Coast. So work is moving forward on that, not quite at the place where we are ready to take it public, but you'll be hearing more information about that in the next short while, because part of it would be having to sign a lease for the main floor with Sanco Development. I attended briefly a session put on by the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. It was the Executive Summit Series. It was on Canadian cannabis, because one of the things that I'm looking at is the Cannabis Act is up for review. It's been 3 years since it was passed, so it's up for review, and I'm looking at getting more information about what that process looks like, how the process is going to work, working with our MP as well on getting some information about that. So what I'm finding is, even though I may not be able to attend a complete webinar like this, if I register and attend part of it, they actually will send me all the materials so that I can study it offline. We have, since our MP has gone back in, the Parliament have been all sworn in. We have started our Sunshine Coast leaders meetings again. We got together for a lunch. We have not seen each other in person for a long time, since before COVID, I guess, was the first time. So we got together for a lunch. It was great to see everybody. It was the first meeting that we've had. And what we do at those meetings is we share what's going on in our municipalities, our organizations, and they share as well. And we look at how we can support each other in moving our initiatives forward. The CAO and I had a meeting with the First Nations, the Sechelt Council, talking about some of our common interests, like sewer, for example. So we're going to be following up on some other items around that. Remembrance Day, I had the honor of representing the District of Sechelt and the Regional District, laying wreaths for Remembrance Day. And then there were a few of us went over to the Legion after. It's always, even though they told people not to come, people came, because it's a significant event, and it commemorates many people in our past. So there weren't as many people in the past, and they spaced out, but it was a really nice event. I'm on the recruitment committee for the new CAO, the Chief Executive Officer for the Island Coastal Economic Trust. The CEO has put in notice to resign. She's staying over until probably mid next year to have a long transition period. And it was really surprising, we had about 90 applicants for that position. And we will be doing in-person interviews towards the end of the month. So it's been narrowed down. I think we'll have a really good candidate. The CAO and I met with Minister Rankin from the Ministry of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation. We got a notice Friday morning that he was going to be here Friday afternoon last week, and would we like to meet with him? So we took the opportunity to meet with him and talk about, some of the challenges and the positive items that we're dealing with, and some of the things we talked about with the First Nations Council when we met with them. I want to commend Councillor McLean again. I attended the Community Association Tea in Davis Bay this past Monday, and it was one of the people who attended actually asked, how did this happen? And so his name was mentioned, that this was his brainchild, and it's a great event. People walk in. Some of the people who've come have not been out of their houses since the start of the pandemic. So this is the first time they've come. What they did this time as well is they took pictures of the room, because some of the people who had registered then backed out because they said they weren't comfortable. So they took pictures, and they're going to make sure those pictures get circulated, because what they've done in the room is they have 10 different little tea tables set around, and for each setting they only use every other one. So there's always a big space in between. So people who've come have really enjoyed it. The tables are set with, tablecloths and cups and saucers, and they get a choice of tea, and it's a really nice event. They have such a good time. Everybody who's come to each one wants to come to all the others. They end up getting put on a waiting list because it's people who are coming first who get first choice, but then if there are openings, they will offer it to others who've come back. So one lady has come twice, and each time she brought different friends with her. She's having a good time with that. So thank you, Councillor McLean. It was a great idea. I think a number of us attended the Budget 2022 public participation sessions that happened this past Monday. Due to the rain that we had and the power outages, we would like to hear from the community if they'd like us to offer more. They were taped and they are on YouTube. So go there and look at them. If you have questions, please send them to us. And as Councillor McLean indicated, I'd like to acknowledge our Public Works, Parks and Water Resource Centre staff. The Water Resource Centre staff, today, our head of HR here and I actually went out and visited Public Works, Parks and the Water Resource Centre and just acknowledge them for what they've done. At the Public Works yard today, I saw a big log that they'd taken out of one of the culverts today that was, the culvert was going under a road. If that wouldn't have been dealt with, the road could have potentially been damaged. So they've done lots of that. As others have said, we saw them driving around a lot on Monday, continually going back and checking drainage ditches, culverts, etc., to save the infrastructure in the community. So I want to commend them for that. And then at the Water Resource Centre today, what they indicated to me was that the plant itself is computerized, and it automatically will adjust for changes in flows, etc. But it does that every 5.5 hours. And what they did was they recognized on Sunday that would not be sufficient on Monday. And so what they told me was that they had somebody man that manually for 36 hours to make sure that the plant could handle the volume of the water that was coming in. So they were continually adapting and changing to make sure that they supported our community. So I want to just commend all of them for all of the work they've done in the last few days. It's been a lot. And what they indicated was they were just really proud of being able to support our community and making sure that, we got through this with as little damage as possible. So, Mr. Dillon, please extend our thanks to our staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. I absolutely will. And pretty amazing what they did. And I think one community in British Columbia was actually evacuated because their wastewater treatment plant failed. And I'm really, really pleased at the quality of the people we have there that avoided that similar fate for our community. And it just makes you value the people that you have in these roles when we have situations like this that, we are lucky. And I'm so happy that we're inviting even more staff to the WRC and other parts of our organization. So we were speaking about momentum earlier, and I think we're in full steam momentum right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to mention one further meeting that I had. During UBCM, Union of BC Municipalities Conference, we talked with Advanced Education, the Minister of Advanced Education, around early childhood education programming in Sechelt and the need for that. And I gathered some data, and we, as we know, the District of Sechelt put in an application for a childcare space funding grant, whatever it's called. And as one of the pieces of information they'd gathered, Community Services indicated they have had 2,000 requests for referrals for childcare since January. So January till September, 2,000. So I presented the information that we had from our childcare needs assessment, some of the information from the community, and what we're looking at doing. And a meeting then, this is a follow-up meeting, happened this week with Advanced Education and Skills Training staff from the Post-Secondary Programs Branch, Capilano University, Mayor Beamish, Director Pratt, and I, was just a 1-hour meeting, but what they were looking at is following up on that meeting to see if there's some way that they can work with Capilano University and the local governments here to address some of the training needs that we have in the community. So I will be having a follow-up meeting probably Friday of this week or early next week with Capilano University to see how we can respond to some of the information that we got, to see how we can move that forward. We do know that that's a high need here. I mean, we see it with our staff, but we're hearing it from all over the coast. So lots of people here are looking for childcare. We want to make sure that we can provide that. It's a huge economic support for our community. I think that's it. I have a few other things, but it's been a busy couple of weeks. On our agenda, we have the SCRD report. I don't believe we have a report. That'll come forward next week. Let's move on to item 12.1, Council Correspondence. So there are 3 items. I'd look for a motion to receive the correspondence. Moved? Seconded? All in favor? Thank you. Anything that you'd like to do some follow-up on? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak to item 1, the email from the Coast Guard Co-op. This is something that is a trend right across the world. Car sharing is growing as a popular mode of transportation. And what it really does is provide a great option for people. And option is the key word. It can be that second car for a family. It can be that different type of car. I know the truck is very popular on the coast, eliminating the need for people to own a truck because they can use it, the shared one, when they need it, or even for people who don't own a car and need it occasionally. So as we look at building Seashelt, I think encouraging car sharing is a really good thing. But when we talk about development in Seashelt, the cost of a parking spot, I was just looking up some numbers. It can range from $30,000 to $50,000 to build an underground or above ground parking spot. They're not cheap, as well as our zoning bylaw stipulates a number of spots that that a building needs. And quite often, the number of car parking spots stipulates how big the building can be. So you see that in a couple of our upcoming developments. They're absolutely maxed out on how many car spots they can get, and that sets the number of units. So if we can look at ways to lower the amount of parking required, we can really think about building Seashelt in a more sustainable way, in a more affordable way, and that's just a more modern way that we need to be moving. So I'd like to wholeheartedly refer this to staff and encourage them to include it in the zoning bylaw review.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that recommendation? Oh, seconded, sorry, yeah. We can just see your head there, and then, so yeah. All right, that's been seconded. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Scott.
No, I'm just, it's a little after, it's midnight where I am now, so I'm striving to stay awake here.
Okay, we're getting there. All right. I'll speak to this. I think this is a great initiative. One of the reasons why we're encouraging development in downtown, more dense development downtown, is because it makes it more walkable. People wouldn't necessarily have to have a vehicle, and particularly with something like this, it would make it where they would never even get a vehicle because they would have access to, a car share. So I'm very much in support of referring this to staff to see how we can incorporate this into our zoning bylaw that's under development. Any other questions or comments on the recommendation on the floor? All those in favor? Thank you. I'd like to look at the last one that came through. This is from the Sunshine Coast Drag Racing Association. They have put forward some race dates. And they're wondering if we would be willing to approve any of these dates. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, so I believe the last time we discussed this, we requested a report from staff regarding mitigation efforts at the airport. I haven't seen that report, so I wouldn't be willing to consider this until we have that report in front of us.
Thank you. Mr. Dillon?
Through your worship, the comment from Councillor McLean is very timely. We were going through past council resolutions and we noticed that we still owe a council report on that. So we will be working on that report, and we haven't set a date for that, but we were hoping to present something sometime in December. You can appreciate we just inherited a bunch of new engineering assessments we have to do throughout the district following the aftermath of this event, but that's still very important to us. So we will come back with some options.
Thank you very much. All right. Anything further on the correspondence? Seeing none, do we have any emergency items?
No emergency items, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I'd look for a motion to adjourn.